My brother actually called me poor in front of everyone at Christmas dinner, and I didn't say a word until he saw my Lamborghini parked outside. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Taryn, I'm 29, and I've always worked hard for everything I have. My brother, Milo, is the exact opposite, arrogant, spoiled, and always looking down on me. That Christmas, our family gathered at our parents' big house. The lights were bright, the tree sparkling, and everyone seemed happy. But I already knew Milo would ruin the night. Sure enough, after a few minutes, he turned to me with that smug look. "Still working your little office job, Taryn? I can't believe you're still struggling while I'm doing so well," he said, loud enough for the whole table to hear. Everyone laughed awkwardly. My cheeks burned, but I stayed silent. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of seeing me upset. For years, Milo had treated me like I was invisible. He mocked my choices, my career, and even my friends. My parents often shrugged, saying he was just joking. But that night, his words cut deeper than usual. I remembered all the times he belittled me and how I always stayed patient, never letting anger take over. After dinner, I excused myself and stepped outside. There it was, my Lamborghini, shining under the Christmas lights. I had worked for years quietly, saving every penny, making smart investments, and building a life they never noticed. Milo had no idea I had bought it months ago. I called him outside, pretending it was casual. "Hey Milo, want to see something?" I said. His confident smirk faded when he followed me to the driveway. And then he saw it, the bright, sleek car that screamed success. His mouth opened, but no words came out. My parents came out too, gasping in surprise. Milo turned red with embarrassment. I just smiled softly. "This is what hard work looks like," I said. "Maybe next time, think twice before calling someone poor." He tried to make a joke, but it fell flat. The look on his face was priceless, a mix of shock, regret, and a little fear. For the first time, he realized that I wasn't someone to underestimate. I didn't need to yell, argue, or make a scene. The car, and the life I built, spoke louder than any words ever could. That night, I drove home quietly, feeling lighter than I had in years. Milo learned a lesson without me having to say much. And I finally felt the satisfaction of being recognized, not for being rich, but for being strong, smart, and patient enough to let my success speak for itself. Everyone laughed when Milo made his comment, brushing it off as a joke. Even my parents smiled nervously, nodding as if it didn't matter. But inside, I felt a heavy sting. The words weren't funny. They cut deeper than anyone could see. I had spent years working hard, sacrificing so much, and still, they looked at me like I was nothing. As I sat there, pretending to sip my drink, memories kept flashing in my mind. All the late nights I spent at my job, the extra shifts I took to save every dollar, the countless times I refused to settle for less. And yet, Milo's smug face and careless words made it seem like none of it mattered. I had always been patient, always polite, always letting things slide. But tonight felt different. Tonight, I realized they had underestimated me for too long. I took a deep breath and promised myself this wouldn't be forgotten. I would show them, not with arguments or complaints, but in a way that no one could ignore. There was a quiet satisfaction in planning my next move. Milo thought he had the upper hand, but he had no idea how far I had come. For months, I had been working behind the scenes on something my family had no clue about. While they assumed I struggled with my small job, I was building a private investment, carefully growing something that could change my life completely. Every paycheck, every decision, every late night had been a step toward this secret achievement. It wasn't about showing off. It was about proving to myself that I could succeed despite being doubted and dismissed. The betrayal didn't just come from Milo. It came from everyone who laughed, who whispered, who ignored the effort I had poured into my future. That mixture of hurt and determination lit a fire inside me. I knew that when the time came, I would reveal the truth in a way that left no room for ridicule, no way for anyone to question my hard work. Sitting there at the table, I made a promise to myself. I would never let anyone belittle me again, not Milo, not my parents, not anyone. This feeling, the sting of betrayal, would fuel me, not break me. Every unnoticed effort, every late night spent planning, every calculated move toward my secret success would pay off. For now, I smiled and nodded as the laughter continued around me, keeping my thoughts hidden. But I carried a quiet confidence that what I was building would eventually speak louder than any insult, louder than any mocking words. The time would come when they would realize that I was stronger, smarter, and more capable than anyone had ever believed. And when that moment arrived, I wouldn't need to explain myself. My success would do all the talking. While everyone focused on Milo, my mind drifted to the past few years of my life, years my family had no idea about. I remembered the day I decided to stop waiting for recognition and start building my own path. I began small, opening a little consulting business from my tiny apartment, taking risks they would have called foolish. Every decision was calculated, every dollar carefully saved, every opportunity analyzed. I invested quietly, never flaunting anything, because I wanted to grow on my own terms. Stocks, real estate, side projects. I learned to make my money work for me while everyone assumed I barely managed to pay my bills. My parents thought I was still struggling, unaware of the late nights I spent studying markets, reading financial reports, and negotiating deals. They didn't see me tracking my savings or watching my investments slowly grow. I often thought about how differently my life could have been perceived if they knew the truth. They would have seen a woman disciplined and determined, someone who refused to let circumstances define her. Instead, they chose to side with Milo, laughing at his jokes and ignoring the effort I had poured into building a secure future. It stung deeply. Their favoritism made the betrayal feel sharper, like a knife twisting in a wound I had hidden for too long. Living this secret life wasn't easy. It required patience, restraint, and self-belief. I couldn't boast or seek validation because I wanted my success to speak for itself, not depend on applause from those who doubted me. The contrast between what my family thought and what I had actually achieved fueled a quiet strength inside me. They believed I was struggling, but I had enough to live comfortably, make smart choices, and create a life of stability and independence. Every missed holiday, every casual dismissal, every small insult from Milo only pushed me further. I became methodical, turning their ignorance into motivation. My business expanded, investments multiplied, and my financial confidence grew with each passing month. They remained unaware of the life I was quietly constructing, and that ignorance became my shield. The emotional impact was profound. My parents unknowingly supported the one person who had caused me the most pain, and they didn't even realize it. That realization fueled a determination that went beyond money. It was about respect, self-worth, and finally proving that I could rise without anyone's approval. As I sat at the Christmas table that night, I let the memories of my secret life wash over me. Every choice I had made, every challenge I had faced, every quiet victory I had celebrated alone, all of it had prepared me for this moment. They had no idea who I had become, and I knew that one day they would see the truth. Not through words, not through arguments, but through the life I had carefully built with my own hand. Milo leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine with a smirk that made my skin crawl. "I just got the newest sports car," he announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. Meanwhile, Taryn is still living paycheck to paycheck, I suppose. The laughter around the table felt like nails scraping against my rib. My face burned, but I refused to react. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. Inside, humiliation bubbled like fire. Every word felt sharp, cutting through the calm I had carefully cultivated. I had endured his arrogance for years, but this time it stung more because it wasn't just him. It was the quiet complicity of my family. They chuckled along, not realizing how wrong they were about me. The sting was almost unbearable, but I clenched my hands beneath the table and focused on breathing, forcing my composure to stay intact. Even as my chest tightened, my mind started spinning with possibilities. I didn't want a confrontation that would make me lose control. I didn't want to raise my voice or shame him in front of everyone. Instead, I thought about how to make a statement so powerful that words alone couldn't compete. A subtle, unforgettable move that would show him exactly who I was, without turning me into someone I wasn't. I imagined the look on his face when reality finally caught up with him. The shock, the disbelief, the quiet understanding that he had underestimated me for. I could feel the thrill of patience and precision pulsing through. This wouldn't be about revenge in the traditional sense. It would be about justice, about proving that intelligence, diligence, and foresight mattered more than arrogance and empty bragging. Milo continued, clearly oblivious to my thoughts, rattling off details about his car, his new deals, his lavish weekend. Each sentence added fuel to the quiet determination building inside me. I listened carefully, analyzing how he presented himself, noting the patterns that revealed his overconfidence. The more he spoke, the clearer my plan became. I would let him shine in his false glory for a little longer, then reveal the truth in a way that would leave no room for denial. For a moment, I allowed myself a tiny, private smile. This wasn't about proving him wrong to the world. It was about proving it to him, and to myself. The sense of control gave me strength. I didn't need validation from anyone else. His arrogance had only strengthened my resolve, sharpening my focus like a blade. That night, I didn't speak. I didn't argue. I didn't need to. The quiet hum of my patience and the secret knowledge of my growing power were enough. Milo would soon learn that confidence without substance was meaningless, and when he did, he wouldn't know what hit him. I had already won the first battle, keeping my dignity intact while plotting a quiet, perfect victory. The next morning, I woke before anyone else, feeling a quiet excitement that made my heart race. After years of planning and careful effort, it was time to show what I had built without making a scene. My success had to speak for itself, undeniable, impossible to ignore. I walked outside and ran my hand along the smooth lines of my Lamborghini, the car gleaming under the soft morning light. Every detail mattered. I had cleaned it meticulously, making sure it reflected the life I had carefully constructed. This wasn't about showing off. It was about delivering a message without words, letting the evidence of my hard work make the point. As I positioned the car in full view of the house, my mind drifted back to last night. Milo's smug expression, the way he laughed at me, the pride he felt in his shallow accomplishments. It all fueled the anticipation simmering inside me. I could almost see the shock on his face as he realized that the person he had dismissed was far beyond what he had imagined. The thought made a small, private smile tug at my lips. I double-checked everything, ensuring the driveway and the surroundings highlighted the car perfectly. It needed to be obvious, undeniable, and impossible to ignore. My goal wasn't to humiliate him in a cruel way. I didn't want to create shame or anger. This was about giving him a life lesson, a moment to understand the consequences of arrogance and disrespect. It was about letting him see what determination, intelligence, and quiet effort could achieve. I took a step back and allowed myself a moment of reflection. Over the years, Milo had never taken me seriously. He had treated my achievements as insignificant, laughed at my goals, and assumed I was living a modest, unremarkable life. Now, everything I had built would counter those assumptions, and the realization would be all the more powerful because it was unexpected. The emotional tension was almost tangible as I imagined him coming outside, expecting the usual scene, and instead confronting undeniable proof of my success. I could feel my pulse quicken, the thrill of anticipation mixing with a sense of calm satisfaction. I wasn't acting out of spite. I was asserting the value of hard work, patience, and self-respect. For a moment, I paused and breathed deeply, reminding myself of the lesson behind this reveal. It wasn't about hurting Milo. It was about setting the record straight. It was about showing that dismissing someone without understanding their efforts could have consequences, that patience and quiet determination often outshine arrogance and entitlement. Finally, I stepped back, satisfied with the arrangement. The Lamborghini gleamed in the morning light, ready to make its statement. Soon, my family would see what I had accomplished quietly, and Milo would confront a reality he had never imagined. The sense of control and anticipation gave me a strength I hadn't felt in years, a feeling that this small, perfect moment would finally allow the truth to speak louder than words ever could. Christmas morning arrived with the house buzzing quietly as family members moved around, carrying gifts and plates of food. I stayed near the corner, observing, blending in as if I were just another participant in the celebration. My calm exterior hid the anticipation building inside me. Everyone was excited, laughing, and exchanging pleasantries, completely unaware that something unusual was about to unfold. I greeted my family politely, smiling softly as I handed out presents. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, and I let them continue their conversations, making sure to stay in the background. But I couldn't help noticing Milo, whose smug confidence was slightly fraying. There was a subtle tension in his eyes, a flicker of suspicion as he tried to sense if something had changed. I let him stew in it, dropping small hints that made him wonder without revealing anything. "Funny," I said lightly, holding a small gift I had prepared. "I've been busy with a few projects lately. They've kept me on my toes." My tone was casual, but I made sure it lingered long enough for him to catch it. Milo shifted uncomfortably, glancing around to see if anyone else had noticed my words. Of course, my parents didn't react. They never seemed to notice the quiet details that mattered most. Their obliviousness, as always, only encouraged Milo to act as if he were the one in control. I watched him carefully, noticing how he straightened his posture and tried to regain his confident smile. But beneath it, there was unease, subtle but undeniable. He was used to being the center of attention, to having the final word, and the idea that I might be ahead of him in some way unsettled him. I didn't need to push too hard. A few carefully chosen remarks and small gestures were enough to make him question what he thought he knew. As the family exchanged gifts, I maintained my composure, never raising my voice or forcing attention. I let the quiet intensity simmer, the anticipation growing with each passing moment. The calm I projected was deliberate. It created a contrast to the storm about to unfold. I wasn't there to compete for approval or make noise. I was preparing the perfect stage for a revelation that would speak for itself. The emotional intensity rose as I realized how blind everyone, especially my parents. Their focus on Milo, their laughter, and their subtle favoritism made the coming reveal all the more effective. I could feel the tension in the air, a delicate thread that would snap in a matter of minutes, and I relished the control I had over it. I sipped my coffee slowly, keeping my expression neutral, letting Milo stew in his uncertainty. This was the calm before the storm, the moment where patience and strategy mattered more than any confrontation. Soon, the house would change in an instant, and everyone would see the truth. For now, I stayed quiet, invisible, and steady, knowing that my time to act was just around the corner. After breakfast, the family decided to step outside for some fresh air, chatting casually as they walked toward the driveway. Milo immediately started bragging again, pointing to his car with pride. "I can't believe how fast this baby is," he said, clearly expecting admiration. He didn't notice the slight shift in the air, the way the tension seemed to thicken around him. I followed calmly, letting him take the spotlight for a few moments. Then, with casual confidence, I gestured toward the driveway. "Oh, I almost forgot to show you something," I said lightly, letting the words linger just long enough to draw their attention. Milo's smile faltered slightly, though he tried to mask it, thinking I was joking. There it was, my Lamborghini parked in plain sight, gleaming under the morning sun. The metallic finish reflected the light perfectly, and the sleek curves made it impossible to ignore. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the keys, and dropped them onto the hood, letting them clatter softly. Everyone froze. Milo's confident expression vanished instantly. His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again as he struggled to find words. He coughed awkwardly, his usual bravado replaced with shock. What how?" he stammered, eyes wide. He glanced at me, then at our parents, desperate for some sort of explanation, some reassurance that this wasn't real. My parents, meanwhile, stared in disbelief, unable to comprehend what they were seeing. Their jaws tightened, their eyebrows raised, and for a moment, silence filled the air. They had always assumed I was struggling, that I was living modestly and quietly. Now, the reality stood before them, undeniable and tangible. I smiled faintly, keeping my tone calm and composed. "This is what I've been working toward," I said simply. "It's been a long journey, but patience and focus pay off." My words weren't loud or boastful. They didn't need to be. The car itself spoke volumes, and the expressions on everyone's faces confirmed it. The emotional satisfaction was almost overwhelming. Milo, who had laughed at me just the night before, was now speechless, reduced to a flustered, awkward version of himself. His arrogance had crumbled without me needing to raise my voice or argue. I could see the contrast clearly, my quiet confidence standing firm against his embarrassment. I had grown into someone they could no longer underestimate, and for the first time, that recognition wasn't fleeting, it was permanent. I stepped closer to the car, resting a hand lightly on the hood, and watched as Milo stumbled over his words, searching for a comeback that didn't exist. The moment was perfect, and I felt an inner calm knowing I had orchestrated it with precision. The power of subtlety, patience, and preparation had finally revealed itself. For a few precious minutes, the world seemed to stop. Milo's shock, my parents' amazement, and my own quiet pride blended into an unforgettable scene. I didn't need to say more. I had proven my worth, my growth, and my ability to turn years of doubt and dismissal into a moment of undeniable truth. Milo's eyes narrowed as he tried to regain control, his voice sharp but shaky. "That's just luck," he said, forcing a laugh. "You probably just got lucky with some random investment. Don't act like this is all because of skill or effort." His words were meant to diminish me, to take away the credibility of what he was seeing. I stayed calm, letting him speak while I measured my response. There was no need to match his anger with my own. My patience had carried me this far, and now it would carry me through the final moment. I took a deep breath, then spoke evenly, letting each word land clearly. "This isn't luck, Milo," I said, my tone quiet but firm. "Every step of this journey was deliberate. Every sacrifice, every late night, every decision I made was calculated. You think this just happened overnight, but it didn't. It's the result of planning, focus, and determination." I paused, letting the meaning settle in. I continued, my voice steady. "And you know what? Your arrogance, your constant criticism, your dismissals, they didn't break me. They pushed me. You fueled my drive more than you'll ever understand. Every time you laughed at me or belittled my efforts, I used it as motivation. You made me work harder, think smarter, and aim higher. This is the outcome of turning negativity into fuel." Milo's face flushed as he opened his mouth to argue, then closed it, unable to find words that could counter the truth. His smugness faltered, replaced by frustration and disbelief. He had always relied on charm and entitlement, assuming it would be enough to intimidate me. Now, all that confidence crumbled in the face of facts and quiet composure. Our parents watched in stunned silence, their expressions shifting from surprise to awe. They had seen the car, but hearing me explain, everything added depth they hadn't considered. They realized, perhaps for the first time, the extent of my resilience and the effort that had gone unnoticed for so long. Milo's dominance at the dinner table evaporated, replaced by an uneasy understanding that he had misjudged me completely. I felt a sense of calm strength as I finished. "This isn't about proving you wrong or making you feel small," I said. "It's about showing what determination can do, even when others doubt you. I hope you'll see that real success comes from patience, discipline, and the courage to keep going, even when no one supports you." Milo turned away, unable to respond, while the rest of the family absorbed the weight of my words. I could see the respect forming in their eyes, slowly replacing the disbelief. The emotional climax of the moment wasn't just about the car or the wealth. It was about the transformation they could finally recognize. The woman who had been underestimated had grown into someone strong, confident, and unshakable. For the first time in years, I felt fully seen, fully acknowledged, and fully in control. Milo's arrogance had collapsed, and I stood tall, quiet but victorious, knowing that my journey had finally been understood. After the confrontation, a quiet tension hung in the air. My parents exchanged glances, their faces softened by a mix of guilt and awe. Without saying much, they approached me, their apologies gentle but sincere. "Taryn, we didn't realize how much you've done," my mother murmured, her eyes full of emotion. My father nodded, his expression a mixture of pride and regret. Milo stood a few feet away, shifting uncomfortably. His pride made him resist at first. "It's nothing," he muttered, his voice tight, refusing to meet my gaze. But even as he spoke, the uncertainty in his posture and the tension in his jaw betrayed him. I could see he was shaken, his arrogance shaken by the undeniable reality of my accomplishment. I listened, acknowledging their words with a calm nod. I didn't need grand gestures or loud declarations. The acknowledgement itself was enough. Over the years, I had longed for their recognition, but now it felt almost irrelevant. The validation I had been seeking externally was no longer necessary. I had achieved inner peace, knowing my worth and capabilities. Watching Milo adjust to the situation was almost satisfying. His usual swagger was gone, replaced with something quieter, humility. He had learned, without me needing to push, that underestimating someone could lead to embarrassment and reflection. I didn't relish his discomfort. Instead, I appreciated the lesson he was finally absorbing. My subtle revenge wasn't about making him suffer. It was about allowing him to understand quietly and thoroughly that his behavior had consequences. For me, the fallout wasn't about winning or losing. It was about independence and self-respect. My success was no longer just numbers in a bank account or a gleaming car in the driveway. It was the culmination of years of perseverance, discipline, and resilience. It was the validation of my choices, the recognition of my own efforts, and the acknowledgement that I could thrive on my own terms. The family began to settle, the earlier tension gradually fading into a sense of equilibrium. Milo didn't say much after that, but the lesson had been learned. I could feel the shift, subtle, yet undeniable. He had to adjust to respect boundaries and to recognize that I was no longer the person he could dismiss. The quiet authority I held now was permanent, unshakable, and earned entirely on my own. As the day continued, I moved through the house with a lightness I hadn't felt in years. There was no need to boast or explain further. The acknowledgement from my parents, the stunned silence from Milo, and the sense of calm self-assurance that filled me were more than enough. I had achieved what mattered most: emotional validation, freedom from their judgments, and a clear understanding of my own strength. That evening, I finally allowed myself to relax fully. The tension that had lingered for so long dissolved. My independence was complete, my self-respect unbroken, and my quiet triumph evident to everyone who had ever doubted me. Milo's arrogance had been tempered, and I could move forward knowing that my achievements, both tangible and emotional, stood firm, unshaken by anyone else's opinion. I sat in the driver's seat of my Lamborghini, the leather cool beneath my hands, and let myself breathe deeply. The driveway stretched behind me, the house quiet now after the morning's chaos. As I looked back at Milo and the family, I thought about how far I had come, from the overlooked sibling who was always dismissed, to the woman standing confidently in her own power. The memories of years spent unnoticed, of sacrifices that no one acknowledged, flashed through my mind. Every moment of doubt, every time I had been underestimated, every hurtful remark had been transformed into fuel for my determination. Betrayal had become motivation, and every slight had been an opportunity to strengthen my resolve. I didn't feel anger now. I felt clarity, pride, and a quiet satisfaction that my success wasn't just tangible, it was a reflection of my endurance and character. I thought about Milo's expressions this morning, the way he had faltered when confronted with the truth. It wasn't about shaming him or teaching him cruelty. It was about justice, the kind that comes from proving one's worth through effort, intelligence, and persistence. My patience had been my greatest weapon, my restraint a tool that allowed my achievements to speak louder than any confrontation ever could. As I started the car and pulled out of the driveway, I felt an unexpected sense of freedom. The wind rushed past, carrying away any lingering tension, leaving only confidence and a sense of empowerment. Driving away, I realized the ultimate lesson I had learned. Self-respect and patience often outweigh the satisfaction of immediate retaliation. The power of quiet, deliberate action can be far more impactful than any argument or outburst. Looking in the rearview mirror, I saw Milo frozen on the driveway, watching me go. I imagined him rethinking his assumptions, replaying my calm demeanor and the undeniable evidence of my success. He would reflect, reconsider, and perhaps understand that underestimating someone comes with consequences. My departure wasn't an act of spite. It was a statement, one that left them to process everything on their own. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of closure. The family's earlier behavior, the ridicule, the dismissals, they no longer held power over me. I had turned every negative into strength, every betrayal into determination, and the result was a life I could own completely. The Lamborghini wasn't just a car. It was a symbol of my journey, a reminder that persistence, intelligence, and self-belief could turn doubt into undeniable achievement. As the road stretched ahead, I felt a calm certainty about the future. No one could define my worth again, and no one could diminish the hard work that had brought me here. The morning's events had been a turning point, a quiet triumph that would remain with me forever. Revenge had been served, not through cruelty, but through undeniable proof of capability. I drove on, confident and steady, leaving behind assumptions, arrogance, and old judgments. The lesson was clear. The most powerful victories are often quiet, patient, and deliberate, and when they finally unfold, their impact is impossible to ignore. Do you think I handled Milo and my family the right way, or should I have confronted them differently? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts in the comments. For more stories like this, subscribe and hit the notification bell.